Welcome to Dr. Jester Rants, and I'm gonna rant about this from the hot garbage that is PC Gamer. Belarusian KGB adds World of Tanks studio boss to the terrorist list. Yeah, they actually have an organization called KGB. Yeah, well, right. Likely in retaliation for Wargaming leaving the country after it supported Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Well, that's what happens when you guys have a dictatorial despot in power. Anything that goes against the narrative, anything that goes against him, is considered wrong. Because Wargaming, despite them being an absolute lover of Soviet garbage, yes, I'm pointing it out because their tanks, their Soviet hot garbage tanks, should even have a goddamn fucking radio. They were made in mass-produced, still couldn't even match American mass-produced tanks. Even in quality, they couldn't even do it because they're, for instance, their best tank at the time, the T-34, was so badly made that it killed people inside. Even if a shell hit it because of rivets, errors in construction, even lacked goddamn fucking radio. Yes, there's even a famous talking point between the Nazi soldiers when they were facing the T-34, that they thought that the Russian soldiers were courageous. They had balls of steel. When they actually shot the tank and suddenly the tank started careening towards them and it would ram, I don't know, a Nazi tank or a Nazi soldier, an anti-tanker and things like that. Turns out that it was so badly protected that the driver was dead, and his body would actually fall on top of the controls, which would force the tank to move forward. There was nothing about courage in there, huh? And hey, details. Tiny little tiny details that nobody seemed to care at Wargaming, but suffice to say, at least Wargaming did one thing right in their entire goddamn fucking wretched life, is that leaving Belarus. But then again, Belarus is just a tiny little garden for Russia to play with. But let's continue. Nikolai Katselapov, the chief business developer officer at World of Tanks, Studio Wargaming, you need to do a better job at that, appears to have been added to a list of organizations and individuals involved in terrorist activities by Belarus Committee for State Security, or KGB. Yes, that is that KGB. Ah, fuck me. In a move which was likely sparked by Wargaming pulling out of Belarus. And on that goddamn fucking hell, here's a trailer for my book. Right. So, continuing. In a move which was likely sport, pulling out of Belarus following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, he is accused under the Article 290-1, quote, financing of terrorist activities of the Criminal Code of the Republic of Belarus. You forgot the end quote in there, dude. But either way, continuing. This is what happens. In the right, we kind of have a certain problem with people who are contrarian NPCs. I'm talking about people like Tim Pool. Of all the good he does, this one is absolutely wrong. Why? And people who actually believe the same thing. For instance, one of the excuses he uses is, but Crimea is the only warm port that Russia has. Wrong. South of Crimea, what do you have? Sochi and a myriad of other Russia cities in there, which are even more on warmer water than Crimea. Crimea is the result of what you let happen with bullies. If you don't push back against bullies, they will take a mile. If you give them an inch, they'll take a mile, 2 miles, 3 miles. It's the same thing with SJWs. You say you're sorry, you apologize, and they will take you and wipe the floor with you. The same thing with SJWs and HR. You let them take an inch, they will goddamn take a mile. Or a city block, or even more than that. An entire city, a state, or a planet. You don't let them. You always push back, which is why Trump did the right thing when he said he called Moscow and other places and said, hey, if you do this, you're gonna get nuked. And guess what happened? Russia did not even invade Ukraine during that time. What did it take for Russia to invade Crimea? Ukraine? Was for Trump to leave. And we have the shit show we have today. First and foremost, you let Russia do whatever he wanted. Eventually, we ended up with Transnistria. Moldova lost part of its territory for Russia. Now we have, then suddenly, years later, after Transnistria and the... I forgot the name. It's a province of Russia who wanted independence. He kind of got fucked. Then we ended up with Georgia. With Bush and Obama just glancing over. It's just Georgia. And guess what? Georgia lost 2 large chunks of its territory to Russia. And then suddenly, years later, Russia said, let's invade Crimea. Nothing will happen. And nothing happened. In fact, Obama even went on and said, let's not arm Ukraine because otherwise we are just escalating. And years later, here we have, again, invading Ukraine. So you think for a tiny little moment that Russia is going to stop just at the eastern side of Ukraine? We saw them trying to invade Kiev, but that one was a failure. Give them a couple of years. And they will then invade Kiev. And Ukraine is completely and utterly gone. So you think that they are going to stop right there? Especially because its tactics, Russian tactics, has not fucking changed throughout the years. It has been the same over hundreds of years. Throw bodies at the problem and see if it solves. If not, keep throwing at them. That's what they did during all the wars they waged. During World War I, during World War II, during its wars against Afghanistan and all other wars. It's the same thing they're doing now. They're throwing bodies. So if they haven't changed their diplomacy, they haven't changed their military tactics, using subpar equipment, we can see the subpar equipment we have. in Ukraine right now. We can see it all. Do you think it changed? Even the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, where they aligned themselves with the Nazis to divide the world in two. Yeah, two socialist utopias. There you go. You think they changed since then? Then, no, they have not. To the point, they even sent military equipment, aid, the top notch of the best equipment they had, to North Vietnam, to North Korea, and all the other countries, including Cuba. They sent them the best of the best. In fact, they even sent their own men, their own pilots, their own tankers, their own generals and stuff on their own territory in North Vietnam to train and kill American soldiers. Yes, even so, recently a guy just got his medal for shooting at Russian pilots. I think it was North Korea. And they had to keep it dark because to avoid problems with Russia. So, you think it's going to change now? Suddenly, somewhere out of the last couple of decades, Russia changed its centuries-old tactics? No. It's not going to change. Wait, I digressed. Fuck me. Right. So, Belarus has long used its terrorist list as a political bludgeon. In the past, dissidents like opposition leader and former presidential candidate Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya have been added to the list as a pretext to justify repression of groups and individuals hostile to President Alexander Lukashenko. Let's call him the Lukashenko. It's likely that Wargaming decision to vacate the country back in April last year offended the higher echelons of Belarus government, particularly given the Wargaming was the country's largest game development studio. It was valued at over $1 billion in 2016, so likely way more in 2022. It's unclear why Belarus has picked particularly, though Nasha Niva theorizes he may at some point have donated money to opposition political figures. Let's suppose Russia takes Ukraine. You think, hey, it's stopping right there. Suddenly, they're going to take Belarus because it had a protest and Lukashenko was deposed. So, Belarus, now it's part of Russia, just like Ukraine. You think they're going to stop there? Nah, they're going after the Baltic countries next. Oh, sorry. Georgia. And then they're going to take Moldova. Yeah, those countries are gone. They're going to stop there right now. Don't worry, they're stopping there. Oh yeah, Baltic countries are next. The Baltic countries are gone. They're going to stop now. Now they're not going to stop it. They want to restore the Soviet Union the way it was. Fuck me. A lot of people who are siding with Russia, or at least simping for Russia, lack the historical context of what is happening. It's not going to stop. You let a bully get away with it, they're going to take a mile or a light year. The same thing is going to happen with China. You saw it. Very little pushback on Russia, and you saw how China is extending its tiny little communist legs over Taiwan. They take Taiwan, they take Mongolia, then they take Vietnam, then they take India. When is it going to stop with these countries? And remember, there was never an actual document. It just said, hey, we're just gonna say, we're probably not going to expand NATO. It was just a verbal agreement. It was not made in document. And any country has their liberty and sovereignty to choose which alliance they take. But let's make it very clear that even if you're going to use, but Mexico, what happens if Mexico aligns with Russia? It's already aligning with China. But even then, I do not recall a Soviet Union of American states in which America subjugated Mexico, Guatemala, or even to Panama, the same way Russia genocided the entire population of those Eastern European countries. America never did that. Not even at the same fucking level, if you are going to try to nitpick on something thereabouts. So, you're comparing oranges with apples. Anyway, on that goddamn fucking hell, have a great fucking night.